Hello. Marin. Yeah. Hello, Ta.
I can unmute. The sound is good. Just want to make sure. Fine. All right. Good to go. How long are we starting, Yosef? 5 minutes? 3 minutes?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone here tonight as we are on the cusp of a secular new year. And we have with us tonight not only a fascinating topic, but a fascinating speaker. Tonight we are really honored to welcome our very own Rabbi Yosef Rice's father, Rabbi Yisrael Rice. And I want to start on behalf of the entire community, Rabbi Rice, to thank you and your wife for raising such a wonderful son who has been such a blessing and a light to our entire community, from the youth all the way up to all ages. Everyone immensely enjoys the beautiful character and wisdom and love that your son displays towards each and every person he encounters. So on behalf of the entire community, I want to formally take this opportunity to thank you for allowing us to have the pleasure of having your son as one of the leaders in our community. This year has been perhaps one of the most challenging years for the world and for all of us individually and as a community. And as we transition from 2020 to 2021, our hearts are filled with prayers and hopes that the coming year will be filled with good health and blessings for each and every one of us and for the entire world. And tonight's speaker, Rabbi Yisrael Rice, first of all, he is the executive director of Chabad of Marin County. In addition to that, he is the chairman of the educational board of the Jewish Learning Institute and International Learning Institute. He has authored many educational series, and he has just released his newest book, which is the 4 Keys of Kabbalah, to help us gain meaning, fulfillment, purpose, and direction in life. And on the launch of this new book, Rabbi Yosef Rice is offering a free gift to every member of our community while supplies last. You can contact the shul or email Rabbi Yosef, and he'll be happy to present you with a gift of his father's new book. The book has received very positive reviews, and it has been widely acclaimed as a transformational book, a book that really can infuse our lives with meaning and spirituality. And the name of the book is The 4 Keys of Kabbalah. And tonight's topic is the Kabbalah of 2021. And I know we're all eagerly waiting to hear what is the Kabbalistic view of the year ahead, 2021. And so the format will be that Rabbi Rice will speak for about 30 to 40 minutes, following which there'll be a question and answer period. You can type your questions into the chat box, and we're going to have Rabbi Yosef Rice actually act as the moderator, as the interviewer, presenting the questions to his father. It'll be nice to hear the dialogue between father and son. And so without any further ado, I want to thank Rabbi Rice for joining us from California. And it's a great honor to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Rabbi Yisrael Rice.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Of course, my favorite part being Rabbi Yosef's father. Out of all of my accomplishments and achievements, although with Rabbi Yosef, the main thing I needed to do was get out of the way and let him become the person that he is. As we say, Baruch Hashem, thank God. So the Kabbalah of 2021, we're all eager to find out. We're all eager to understand and know. What is the year to come have to offer us? What can we look forward to? We all know 2020, we're going to be very happy to talk about 2020 hindsight. But now it's going to, of course, gain a whole new meaning. Before we speak about the Kabbalah of 2021, I'd like to talk a little bit about Kabbalah. What is Kabbalah? And of course, as we go on, any questions that you have, please feel free to ask. So in Judaism, we have 4 general ways of looking at reality, 4 different ways that the Torah informs us about reality. So when we are looking at, say, most commonly, a verse in the Torah, we will look at number 1, what is called the Pshat. The Pshat is the simple meaning. What is it? What is the simple meaning? Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Very simple, right? Well, maybe not, but that's the simple meaning. But beyond the simple meaning, we have what is called the remez. The remez is alluding, that this is alluding to something else. So Bereshit bara Elokim is alluding to something deeper. The word Bereshit itself contains in it Yareh Shabbat, that one fears the Shabbat, and many other meanings contained within this one word of Bereshit. The next level is called Drush. Drush is finding a homily, a message. And so there we're going to look at the verse Bereshit bara Elokim in a whole different way. That God created the heavens and the earth, and so too God creates every single day for us to experience, for us to see God's blessings. And finally, the fourth level of understanding is called Sod. Sod means, literally, Sod means the secret. And that is the very divine nature of what it is that we're looking at. So in terms of the verse, for instance, Bereshit, the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, Kabbalistically means bara shit, that God created six. God created six components through which he brought about existence. And these refer to the six spiritual sphirot, which we're not going to be getting into tonight. But my point here is that there are many different layers of understanding. And sometimes when we look at these different layers of understanding, we can seem to be a little bit confusing. And we say, what? Come on. We know the Torah is just saying one thing, and why do the rabbis always make everything, so complicated and so elongated? Well, for one thing, we're getting paid per word. But aside from that, we all came to participate in a class tonight. Now, if I ask you, why did you come to participate in this talk? And I'm not even talking about everybody who may have a different reason, but even one person themselves. Why did you come to this talk? Well, maybe you came to this talk because you love Rabbi Yosef and you wanted to meet his father and hear what his father has to say. That's, a good reason to come to a talk. Somebody else maybe said, Kabbalah, that sounds very interesting. In 2021, I really want to see that. There are so many different layers of our very own reality. So when I participate in something, I'm not just participating on my conscious level, which is the normal level that we think we're operating on, but there is our subconscious, there's our unconscious, there's many different deeper levels of our very own reality. And when we think we're doing something for one reason, there might be another three that accompany it. And so too, when we take a look at the Torah is multi-dimensional. You have all of these different realities occurring in the Torah itself. So the Kabbalah, when we're looking at that level, that layer of understanding, we're looking at godliness itself in the world. When we're looking at a human being, we could look at that person's pshat, their simple meaning. We could look at the way that life is maybe is symbolic of something else. It might remind us of a story, but ultimately when we're looking at another human being, we're looking at a part of God. We're looking at a soul that has come into this world to fulfill a purpose and fulfill a function. And on the way, it's hit a few bumps. If you're a regular, normal human being, you've hit a bump or two or three. And they're trying to navigate and negotiate. But what that person really is, what are you looking at? When you're looking with the Kabbalah lens, you're looking at a soul. Stephen Covey has a statement, one of my favorite sayings. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. You may have heard that. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. We get so distracted in life by, for lack of a better word, Nadischkeiten, by silliness, our pet peeves. We we need things to be in such a way, in a particular order, which is really just, to some degree, crazy, and we forget about the main thing. Imagine if we were able to partake of a meal and just think about the fact that another human being, normally it's going to be maybe your spouse or your loved one or somebody, went to the effort to create a meal for you, and how it tastes and how it looks, and everything else is ancillary, tertiary, not even a consideration. The only thing you're thinking about is the main thing. Boy, that would be an amazing way to improve every single relationship, to realize and understand what the truth of this matter truly is about. It's not about the fact that this food is a little bit cold to my liking, or that my wife didn't make the green beans the way that I wanted them. Gila, are you listening? I'm not sure if my wife is on, but you know what I mean. You're not going to use this against me, are you? So we get carried away with things that are really not that important. And oftentimes, even the things that we think are important are not that important. What is more important than the relationship? And this is what Kabbalah is ultimately about. It's giving us a way to look at the world so that we can remember the main thing. The main thing is that there is a soul, a part of God within this human. And whether you're at work or you're in the street or you're dealing with maybe a very difficult person, to realize that that person is an expression of God in this world. Then we all have our issues that we're dealing with. We all have the pain that we're dealing with, the difficulties. So this is a very basic idea of Kabbalah, looking at the world through the God lens. How is godliness being expressed in this particular verse? How is godliness being expressed in this particular person? How is godliness, or I should say the potential for godliness, possibly going to be expressed in this particular experience? And Kabbalah has a lot to do with the way that godliness manifests from the divine source to come down into this physical world. We'll talk about that in a moment. So this is one of the big questions in Kabbalah. You know, we're going to start off a little bit talking about God. Oftentimes, we speak about God, and without really having a good understanding of what it means when we're talking about, what does that mean when we're talking about God? Many of us may have had the good fortune to have a positive relationship with God, and we go to synagogue and we pray and we feel a certain connection. One time I was speaking with an atheist who was a very smart guy, and I asked him, I said, how could you subscribe to a belief that there is no designer behind this universe? You're a smart guy. I mean, how could you possibly subscribe to a belief that there's no designer, right? That's basically what we think of as an atheist, somebody who believes that there is no God. And he told me, the answer that he gave me really illuminated my own understanding of God, my own understanding of Judaism. This is what he said. He said, if there is a designer, if there is a creator to the universe, which includes, of course, the creator of space, the creator of time, that entity would have to be so beyond us so as to preclude any possible relationship between that entity and a human being. He said it would be like an atom from this table trying to strike up a conversation with a human being. The distance is too great. The chasm is unbridgeable. And when I heard that from him, I said, wow, that's exactly correct. And I came to realize and understand that the big idea, or perhaps even the crazy notion of Judaism, is not that there is a God, but that this entity that is truly beyond our understanding, beyond any comprehension that we could possibly have, desires to have a relationship with each and every human being. That is the big idea of Judaism, that God desires to have a relationship with us. Now, if we have a more simplistic notion of God, and we're just thinking of God, I read about God in the Torah, and I have a very personal connection. That's a beautiful and wonderful thing. But if you start thinking in a little philosophical term of what we're talking about when we're talking about God, the Kabbalah describes God as being infinite. But that doesn't really do it, because when you say infinite, infinite itself has got many different measures. You can have a line that's infinite, which would be a point to the point of infinity. You could have a line to infinity, which would create a plane. You could have a plane that's infinite amount of space. You could have an infinite amount of all different kinds of things. But when we're speaking about God's infinitude, really, what we're talking about an entity that is beyond any dimension whatsoever. So one of the big questions in Kabbalah is, if you have this great and wondrous entity, and like this atheist happened to ask me, the atheist, by the way, is my brother, so you can call him up and ask him about the story. His question was, how can an entity who is so vast, so far beyond, possibly have a relationship with a human being? How is that possible? Or in the Kabbalistic language, how do we get from there to that, from that beyondness to here, to where we are now? That seems to be unbridgeable. God is beyond any measure, beyond any possible way to understand, any apprehension. Let machshava tfisa beklal, no mind can apprehend you at all. And so Kabbalistic literature goes on and on talking about God, how God is totally not understandable. And then it goes into explain God, what we can understand. So the Kabbalah describes something that in order for God to create this universe, this existence, the first thing that God did was God created a void. God created a space where godliness was not evident. It's called a makom panui, an empty space. It wasn't truly an empty space, but it was a space in which God cannot be felt. And in this void, in this vacuum, God drew a light. And with this measured light, God then went about to create the cosmos. And the Kabbalah goes and describes that really all of space, time, anything that can possibly exist is basically a divine code. And it's as if God was writing a computer code, just like the screen that you're looking at. If you go to its core code, it's going to be a string of commands, a bunch of letters and characters put in an order that we can't understand, we can't comprehend, right? A computer programmer can. So Kabbalah actually describes that these are the words of the Torah. The words of creation is a divine coding to bring about existence. But that limited form of divine energy came about from this light that was drawn into the void. There's a very beautiful idea in this concept of the void, is that basically God put himself aside for you, for Nancy, and for Jan, and for Charles, and for Zia. God put himself aside. We think oftentimes, it's a nice thing having a name Zia. Hi, Zia. That's my niece.
Thanks.
A cousin, actually. Sorry. God puts himself aside. You know, sometimes the way you look at it, we don't look at it maybe exactly the right way. God put himself aside, not for the universe, not for the cosmos, not for planet Earth. God put himself aside for you individually, so that you can come about. And I'm sorry I didn't mention everybody's names, but you can fill in the blank. You understand, you got to fill in your own blank. So God put himself, everyone can speak and say, God put himself aside for, go ahead and say your name, Yisrael, right? So if somebody says, are you God's, you think you're God's gift to the world? The answer is absolutely. Of course I am. Why else would I be here? And we're God's gift to each other. So God put himself aside to bring about us, to bring out us in a general way, in a collective way, as well as us in an individual, beloved fashion, right? That I am here. And so Kabbalah teaches that that's what God did for us. And what we do is sometimes we try to put aside our ego and our own desires and what we want in order to connect with God in a similar fashion. But I'd like to get back to this idea of a void. So the idea of a void, of God eliminating any light that could be perceived, any godliness that could be apprehended. God removed it all to create a void. That doesn't sound very good, does it? There's a story told, didn't happen that long ago. It's, maybe about 40 years ago. The Lubavitcher Rabbi had a heart attack, and he was going through his many procedures. And at one point, a doctor came to draw blood. And everybody, all of the Hasidim, all of the followers were in a very sad state, worried and wondering and not knowing what was going to be. And this can be, not very different in our situation anytime, but now it's really the whole entire globe is in this kind of a state. And as this doctor inserted the needle into the Rebbe's arm, the Rebbe saw it to be a perfect opportunity to bring out the purpose of our existence and the purpose of difficulty and the purpose of suffering and the purpose of a void. Really, 2020, if we want to look at it, it's like that space where light has been removed from. It's a vacuum. It's like everything that we thought about what normal life was taken away. We have this amazing void. 2020 was this makom panui, this place where we had problems, we have worry, we have concerns. People getting sick, people dying. Not to go into everything else that happened in 2020. Many, many things that will be written about for decades, if not for centuries. This will be a year for the history books. A year of a void, an emptiness that is certainly, I'm sure each and every one of us feels it to some degree or another, how this emptiness has gripped us. So the Rebbe said, at this point when he had the needle in his arm, right? When you go to the phlebotomist, right, and you have the needle in your arm, that's usually the point where you want to share a story or talk about something or think, I think there's a great lesson to learn here, right? That's not a usual thing. But if you're the Lubavitcher Rebbe, really, we're all taught that we should take a lesson from what we experience in life. So with the needle in the Rebbe's arm, the Rebbe told the doctor what the doctor already knew. And he said, it's not the needle that draws the blood. It's the vacuum that is created in the syringe that draws the blood. when we're talking about creating the flow of life, right? And how do we draw divine blessing, divine energy into our life? It's not the needle. It may not even be the conduit. What it may be is the void. The void itself is there for a very significant purpose. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I believe, is the Kabbalah of 2021. If 2020 was a void, was this vacuum that was created in every family, in every country around the entire globe, 2021 is the year that we realize that that vacuum was created for one purpose and one purpose alone: to draw divine energy in a way that it has never been real in our life before, to draw blessing, to draw goodness, to draw holiness, to draw love into our life. This is what the void is about. And this is the amazing idea of Kabbalah. The Kabbalah gives us a whole different way of looking at what it is that we're experiencing in life. We look at something and we say it's emptiness, but that emptiness is really only there for a reason, for a purpose. You know, there was an alcoholic sitting at a bar. This is a joke, by the way. I should preface it because I've been so serious until now. There aren't a lot of good Kabbalah jokes, I'm sorry, so I've got to do a guy sitting at the bar. And his glass was filled halfway with vodka. And a fellow comes in and asks him, he says, is your glass half full or half empty? And the alcoholic said, without batting an eyelash, my glass is halfway to another full glass. When the glass is empty, it is ready to receive. It is ready to receive the divine blessing. One of the things that I talk about in the 4 keys of Kabbalah is how we get ourselves to understand divine blessing, and particularly with an emphasis on understanding challenges in life and difficulties that we have, both from without, people distracting us, people getting in our way, people not allowing us to move forward, and within our very own self, our own personal challenges that we have in finding meaning and finding purpose and keeping ourselves healthy, both physically and emotionally and psychologically, et cetera, et cetera. And the question is, and this is one of the issues that maybe people might have when they're trying to understand God, and a difficulty that some people have in believing in God, is that if I were God, I would have made a better world. If I was the creator, I could have created a world without all of these problems. What? Does God created this world because he couldn't figure out how to, and a lot of people don't believe in God because they can't understand why God would create such a, for lack of a better word, messed up world. Why do we have to sit for a year with this coronavirus? And this is, honestly, there have been far worse problems than this in humanity in recent past and in our own personal lives. God could have created us in a way where we would see the divine light in ourselves, where we would see the divine light in the world around us, and things would be wonderful. They would be amazing. Imagine if you woke up in the morning and you realized, God has just given me the gift of life. God has given my soul back to me. What would you want to say? every single morning. We want to say, thank you, God. Well, we do. We say, Moda ani lefanecha. I'm thankful before you, living and existing King. But I'll admit, it's a good time for confessions now. When I say the Moda ani in the morning, I'm saying it in a perfunctory way. I say it every single morning and I say it quickly. If I really understood that God has just given me the gift of life and restored my soul, I would be so excited. I would wake up and I would say, wow, this is amazing. That didn't happen to me this morning. Maybe it happened to you. Betty, did you wake up that way? Shani? Anybody? Barry? Let's see some other names over here. Fred, good to see you, Fred. Well, I don't see you, but I see your name. Did you wake up so exuberant? Why didn't we wake up so exuberant? Because the soul came back into our body. Our body conceals the truth. But what if we didn't have that concealment? What if we were able to see the truth of the matter? We were able to feel our soul. And when we look at another individual, we would see their soul. And we looked at every situation in life, everything would be so amazingly perfect. We would see godliness and the divine opportunity everywhere without an effort. So why would God create such a world? So convoluted, so confusing, with so much sorrow and pain, tragedy, disaster. The answer is that there's one thing better than creating a perfect world. And it's so much better, it's infinitely better. And that is creating a world of concealment. This world, with all of the issues that we have from within and from without, in our own self and whatever problems we may have, whatever tsaris we may have, this is precisely the world that God desired to create. So what I explain in the 4 Keys of Kabbalah, I give an analogy of 2 different types of teachers. One teacher comes in and explains to you everything that you need to know, unpacks every idea in the clearest, most lucid way. She has a PowerPoint, she has diagrams, she has analogies, and everything is explained so that every single student can get the subject matter perfectly. Wow. You study, you learn in the class, you get the ideas, you know it. Everybody knows it. But then there's another type of teacher. A teacher that bends over backwards to not tell you the main idea. They'll teach around it, they'll lead you to the idea, but they will actually go through great effort. And their whole teaching style and their whole teaching process and their pedagogic philosophy is to not tell you what the idea is. Why not? Anybody can unmute and tell me, why will the teacher not tell you?
They want you to figure it out on your own.
They want you to figure it out on your own. They know that you can find the idea. This way of teaching and this way of learning is learning through discovery. What that means is that the information, what you know, is not what the teacher told you, but what you on your own discovered. Because you had to figure it out. You had to use your mind. You had to look at it from one angle and another, and it wasn't easy. And you found the answer. So let me ask you a question. Teacher number 1 taught it. The class knows it. Teacher number 2 taught it, although not the main idea, but the class figured it out and the class knows it. what's the difference between the knowledge of the knowledge that the students have from teacher number 1 and the knowledge that the students have from teacher number 2? What is the difference? In a word, anybody want to unmute and call out a word or two? That's fine.
Self-discovery.
Self-discovery. Very much so. Another word very much associated with self-discovery would be ownership. When you have to figure it out on your own, it's yours. It's yours. And ownership is the only way for you to find meaning, purpose, and value. So if God would have created this perfect world where it was all filled with the divine light, and we would wake up in the morning automatically programmed to exuberantly exclaim our gratitude to God for giving us back our soul, and so too with every life experience that we go through, that living would be perfect, but it would just be missing 3 things: meaning, purpose, and value. So the world that we have, with all of the difficulties, right? This is all here in order for us to discover, to realize that the void is not a void to remove godliness. The void is there, like teacher number 2, to remove the message so that we can find the message, so that we can discover it. Who was the very first Jewish person? Someone call it out.
Abraham.
Abraham. There's a lot of discussion about why exactly was Abraham the very first Jewish person. Why was he chosen? We have here Abraham. We have a few Abrahams here in the group, so I'm sure you're now awake and listening. Why was Abraham the very first Jew? I'd like to offer the following explanation. Abraham was the first human being that discovered God. All of the other prophets before and even after knew about God. Adam, in the story in the Torah, God spoke to Adam. Adam was aware of God. God spoke to Noah. Noah was aware of God. Noah was taught about God, but his grandfather taught him. Abraham was the very first person who was brought up in a house of idolatry and found God on his own. We don't realize, but the whole story of God talking to Abraham that we see in the Torah started when Abraham was 75 years old. So what happened to Abraham beforehand? He went through a whole process of discovery, and God did not make it easy. God was playing hard to get, so that Abraham was the first person to discover God. That's, if you look at the word discover, we don't think about it. It's discover, to uncover, right? To discover something. And that is why Abraham was the first Jew. He was the first human being to find God. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is our job in the world. When we have this void, when we have this emptiness, we must understand and realize that there's a purpose here. The purpose of the vacuum is to draw the energy in, to draw the divine blessing, to draw the divine energy. And that is the Kabbalah of 2021. How am I going to make myself a recipient for that divine blessing? God willing, we'll all be healthy, we'll all be hearty, we'll get the vaccine, and we'll take care of ourselves, and we'll social distance to the degree that we need to, and everything. But as Stephen Covey says, we got to keep the main thing the main thing. We have to make sure that the void and the empty space, the vacuum of 2020, allows us to draw in the blessings of 2021. The needle does not draw the blood, the vacuum draws, the blood, the life, the energy. I'd like to share one other short idea. I see it's getting a little bit late and we want to leave some time for questions, but 2021. So the number 21 has a Kabbalistic significance. Let's see. And that is when we're familiar with the first time that God spoke to Moses. There was at the burning bush. You saw the movie. Sure, you went to synagogue and you heard the speeches, right? But you saw the movie, you know exactly, right? So I don't recall if this was in the movie or not, but why did Moshe go? Why was he wandering around in the desert? What was he doing? Go ahead. He was looking for
sheep.
He was looking for a lost sheep, one lamb, one little lamb that departed from the flock. He went to look for it, to find. You see, again, once again, it's all about discovery, right? It's about that lost lamb, bringing that lost lamb back into the fold, right? So God said, "This is my man," and God came to him, and Moses asked him a very unusual question. He said, "God, I'm going to speak to the Jewish people. They're going to say, what is his name? What do I tell them?" And God said, "Ehayeh asher ehayeh." I will be what I will be. We don't have time to go into the whole thing, but this is actually one of the names of God. Ehayeh, or sometimes we pronounce it because it's the name of God, Kehayeh, because we don't want to pronounce God's name. Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey has the numeric value of 21. And so God was telling Moses, when the Jewish people were at the brink of despair, when what they had felt in life was emptiness and void, God said, "I am God." Meaning, as Rashi goes and explains for us, because in case we didn't get it, you know what I am God, I am means? I am with you in your suffering. I am with you. When you are suffering, I am suffering. So do not think that emptiness that we have in life is a distraction from God, but God himself feels that. This is considered the name of God that describes God's essential existence. So God's essential existence is with us. When we go to synagogue, when we pray, when everything is going wonderfully, swimmingly well, no.
Torah.
When we are suffering.
He talked about the Rebbe.
Oh, well, yeah, but our rabbi talks about the Rebbe.
Joseph, you might want to mute because some people may not realize.
Says, "Catch your Torah."
So 21, going into the year 2021, this is about what follows the void, what follows the emptiness, and realizing that God is there with us. And we have the leaders of the Jewish people, we have the message of Moses looking for the lost sheep specifically, the one that lost their way. So any of us that may have lost their way, or this is the hope, the name Ehayeh, the 21, the name of God that has the numeric value of 21, the same as the year that we're going into, 2021, is about the eternal divine hope, that God is here with us. Do not think for a moment that God has forgotten us, forsaken us, or put his concern for us on pause. On the contrary, God is with us more now than ever before. The void, the concealment, the difficulty, that is only a way for us to discover. Sometimes we forget that in order to discover something, it has to be hidden. It's not hidden, you can't discover it. So any concealment, right, and this void and this emptiness, it's only there in order for us to find the divine blessing. So I'll stop here. People may have questions, but that's the basic message. I give each and every one of you a blessing that may the coming new year, the secular new year, bring increased blessing. And I give you the greatest blessing, which is to find the blessing in what you have. You should have, of course, more abundance and great things, but imagine if we would all find the unlimited, glorious blessing in what it is that we have right in front of us or right inside of us. Thank you very much.
Yasher koach.
Thank you, Ta. Thank you, dear Father. That was
Thank you.
very nice. We now have some question answers and some discussions. So everyone's welcome to put any questions that you may have in the chat box. And if you're following on Facebook, you're welcome to put your questions in the comments on Facebook as well, as we have a question answer. And I just want to say, Todd, thank you so much. It's so good to hear another class, especially growing up, hearing your voice, lectures in and out. And of course, they really inspired me. And you did say in the beginning that all you had to do was let me go on my own. But it's, of course, through your guidance day in, day out that inspired me to continue in your way as a rabbi and inspiring those around me. So thank you very much. We have a couple questions that came in. One question is as follows. Someone asked that your book, because it provides practical exercises, what are some practical ways to remove the concealment in our lives so we could see more clearly what reality is and how to focus on the main thing?
Okay. It's a very good question. And it might be different for different people. But I think particularly one of the most powerful exercises in the book is something that I referred to in the talk over here, is the Moda Ani meditation. And it's in, I believe, chapter 6 in the book, where I speak about really what this gratitude is about. And there's a meditation that goes along with it. And the meditation is really, it's a contemplation so that when we say the words, we feel the words, we experience the words, they become our reality. But that only happens when we actually take the time to think about it. We have to sit down in a quiet spot, read it, and actually do the exercise. It's one of the unfortunate things, you know, we sure wish that we could get into shape by just reading about the exercise. But as we know, with physical exercise, you know, the reading about it doesn't help. You have to actually do it. So taking the time, and it doesn't take a lot of time, but to do the Moda Ani meditation, that way when we wake up in the morning, we can recite, we can start our day. And this explained, this is in more modern science, they found that right when you wake up in the morning, your brain is in a state to be able to really set the path for the whole day. Even though we're in a little bit of a fog, we haven't had our coffee yet, right? And we're kind of in a dream state. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it's the gamma state. The theta state would be when we're sleeping. When we wake up right away, we're in a gamma state, which is this time when we are very impressionable. And we are impressionable, and we also, therefore that's going to make an impression on our entire day. Who here wakes up in the morning and immediately grabs their telephone, their cell phone? Don't raise your hand, that's okay. Right, that's like such a, especially today, right? Like nobody's contacted you. There've been no emergencies. There's nothing has changed. Everything is great. Baruch Hashem, great. Nothing, there's no reason to look at your phone. The first thing you do in the morning, you wake up and you recite this amazing prayer. But if you do the meditation during the day, right? So when you wake up in the morning, you're going to remember it and you're going to be actually able to feel it And in that gamma state, you will be able to transform yourself. It's kind of like a life hack, you know? It's like, when can I really transform myself? One thing I can do, that moda'ani right in the morning is going to change your entire day. You know, giving a little truth to the idea of waking up on the right side of the bed. So that would be waking up and reciting the moda'ani with the meditation. Again, I wouldn't read the meditation in the morning. You read the meditation during the day so that when you wake up in the morning, you will feel it.
Thank you. And by the way, I want to remind everyone that the book here, The 4 Keys of Kabbalah, is available here at the office, and we have some signed copies. So all those, we're giving it out as a gift for anyone that would like. A lot of people have already contacted me, and they'll be available over the next few days here at the synagogue's office. I myself am in the middle of reading it, and it's an incredible, life-changing book. And thank you. And that actually leads me to a question, a personal question I had for you, Ta, and that is, you know, you raised 9 children, you have grandchildren, you've been running a Chabad house, a synagogue, as a community leader for so many years. You teach in a school, you are on the executive board of JLI. How did you find the time to write and publish such a beautiful book? Just as your son, I'm so curious.
Well, it's a good question. It's really been a life work. And I would say that from the time that I was a teenager, I've been driven to find a way to bring the beauty, meaning, and profundity of Judaism to those who haven't yet found it. And so really from my teenage years, I've really been driven to find a way. And so when I came out to become a rabbi, I developed a seminar, and I kept working on it and developing it further to find a way in, right? And I write about this. Actually, I don't write about it in the book. That early on in my career, I was teaching some of the wisdom of Judaism, and one of my students asked me a question that changed my entire trajectory. She asked me the following question. She said, "Rabbi, it's all very interesting, but what does that have to do with my life?" And I said, wow, if I've been teaching in such a way that somebody doesn't have a way to apply it to their life, I have to change my message. I don't change the Torah, but there's got to be a way to get from here to there. And that's really what I worked on. And through that, eventually the book was born.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll see if someone asks me a question. Maybe one day I too will try and write a book, or maybe Clara, my wife, will. We have another question over here, and that is, you spoke about the year 2021 and its significance, but is there any significance to the Hebrew year, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year that we have entering? Is there a Kabbalah behind this Jewish year?
Oh, I'm sure there is. You'll have to come back next week for the Kabbalah of 5781. So believe it or not, you know, if I look at something to try to find a significance, I didn't just come up with it while I was standing here. You know, you got to think about it and toss it around. So there definitely is. And I know that it's been written in books from many years ago that the Pei Aleph, that Tafshin Pei Aleph actually is an acronym for Tehei Shnat Pelaot Arenu, that it will be a year that I will show you wonders. So that's a little bit about that. I'd have to look more into it to see if I could find more significance.
Thank
there's
you.
a morsel.
Thank you. And by the way, if anybody has more questions, we're still reading the chat box and Facebook Live, if you're following on Facebook Live as well, if you have any questions. And we're getting a lot of comments and texts, how much everyone enjoyed listening to the class this evening and learning about the upcoming year and its significance. But one final question that came in is, what is the difference, as we learn about mysticism, what is the difference between Kabbalah and learning Chassidut? And is there a difference between the two?
Yeah, very good question. There's definitely a difference between the two. I would say that Hasidic philosophy would be perhaps we could say it's a current iteration of Kabbalah. But getting it just a little bit more technically, Kabbalah talks about all of the various levels. It's kind of like cartography. I have a chart here. Since I teach Kabbalah sometimes, so I show people the Kabbalah chart here, and this is very much a map about thousands and tens of thousands of various levels and how they interact through what we do in life and fulfill the mitzvot, etc., etc. Chassidut is more focused on how do I take that information and affect and change my life with it. I would say in a sense what Chassidut is whereas Kabbalah is the divine understanding, I would say Chassidut takes it, as it is the later iteration, it takes it one step further into the essential information and really talks much more about how these levels convey and explain and illuminate our personal, meaningful relationship with God.
Thank you. And would you suggest learning one over the other, or trying to learn both?
Well, let me think about it. I would maybe start with the 4 keys of Kabbalah. That kind of brings the two together. I think most practically today, I think the study of Hasidic literature is going to include the Kabbalistic in shall we say, bite-sized pieces in ways that we can actually make sense of it to a large degree. Whereas if we start off with the Kabbalah, a lot of times, some people will get lost and other people will get lost without realizing that they're lost. So, a person can be sitting down and having a deep Kabbalistic meditation, and then someone disturbs them and they start yelling at the person, right? Obviously, the person is not getting the message of their meditation, which is there's a part of God standing right next to me, trying to get my attention. So sometimes when we're trying to get deeper information that's maybe beyond our security level, I think it's better to study Kabbalah through the lens of Hasidus. But again, if you start with the 4 keys of Kabbalah, you'll see what I mean.
Thank you. And on that note, someone messaged, I don't live in Florida. Where could I purchase the book? Is there a place online to buy it?
Yes, you could go to, maybe you want to put it in the chat, KabbalahKeys.com. And if you order before the end of the year, you can put in the code end of 2020 and you'll get a discount.
Look at that. We write down at an amazing time to speak about the Kabbalah of 2021. Well, thank you so much. And
thank you. It was so important. It went straight to the heart and to the soul of everyone. I'm so touched with this lecture.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And you're definitely an inspiration to all of us. And it's so wonderful to see you. Should always continue to see you in good health. So Todd, thank you once again. Thank you so much. I'm very excited for New Year's Eve now to take this void and enter the vacuum, going straight into the new year and bringing and doing a lot of good things and making it the best year. and really count. So thank you for giving us that direction. And I look forward to reading the book. And once again, make sure to swing by the synagogue over the next few days during office hours, and the book will be available, or go to KabbalahKeys.com. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you everyone for joining us. And you should be an amazing year ahead, and filled with only happiness, good things, and an abundance of blessings. Thank you very
Amen.
much.
Thank you, Rabbi Yossi. Thank you, Rabbi Senior.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Yasher Koach.
Thank you, Rabbi Rice.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. It was
Thank you. Very
wonderful.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Say good job.
What, Don?
I say good job.
Yeah, sure.